first, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello and welcome back to Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler. As always, we are live streaming here on the Fox 12 Oregon app. We're on their website. We're at a number of different places, so however you're finding us, thanks for doing so. We cover a wide range of topics, but right now we're talking about something that is important to a lot of people in the Portland area, and that is when the Vaux's swift birds return to roost in this area. We're going to get into all the details in case you don't know what those are, but every year thousands of people gather at Chapman Elementary to watch these birds, hundreds, if not thousands of them, roost in the chimney there. But for the last 2 years, they haven't been showing up. So we want to find out a little bit more about why that is, where you can go to watch the birds and see them here in this area, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's quite a sight to see all of these birds flying around and roosting together in these chimneys in the area. So we went to Joe Liebezeit from the Oregon Bird Alliance to find out more about them, about the organization itself, and like we said, where you can go watch them.
My name is Joe Liebezeit. I'm with the Bird Alliance of Oregon. I'm the statewide conservation director, and the Bird Alliance of Oregon has been around since 1902. We're one of the oldest environmental NGOs in Oregon. We used to be called the Portland Audubon Society, but we changed our name a couple of years ago. And our mission is really to protect wildlife and habitats throughout the state and connect people with nature.
Well, talking about nature connecting, I mean, certainly right in the city every year we have the Vaux's swift birds that come in. For anybody who doesn't know, could you give us just a bit of an understanding of the Vaux's swift and what really makes it so special here?
Yeah, the Vaux's swift is a small migratory bird. They migrate from their wintering grounds are in northern South America, Central America, and southern Mexico. And every spring they come up to the northwest, including in Oregon, and they breed here. And then during the fall, like right around now, they start heading back south. And so what makes them unique is that they cluster together this time of year and use chimneys to roost in during the night when they're doing their migration. So
chimneys all over the city, that's where you could find some of these Vaux's swift?
Yeah, they're using well, historically they used like old, hollowed out, old growth trees to roost in, and they still do that in some areas, but with the decline in our big forests, they have switched often to using these chimneys, large chimneys they need during the fall migration, because you can have thousands of birds in one chimney at any one time.
And from what I understand, Chapman Elementary School is one of the places where they tend to go to every year. Why is that they choose that?
Yeah, up until last year, they've been using the Chapman chimney for decades in large numbers. And part of the reason we think they do that is because they need to have a place to be protected, to be away from predators, to have good warm conditions, especially as we get further into the month when it gets cool out at night. They need a place where they can keep warm, and it's along their migratory pathway, so it's convenient for them to kind of all roost together. They're social birds, and yeah, that's what they do.
And this has become kind of a cultural gathering every year with thousands of people that come out to see the birds at Chapman, right?
Yeah, Chapman had gotten very popular, and we can sometimes get as many as 3,000 or 4,000 people on any given night to view the swift spectacle above your head as they spiral into the chimney. And it was a long kind of process to work with Portland Public Schools to gain permission, and with the local communities to work on things like adequate parking and things like that, so people could enjoy this.
But now they're not going there. So what would be the reason that they've decided not to go and roost there?
Yeah, last year they started going in there, but then about mid-September they were gone. And we don't really know exactly why they're not choosing Chapman. We do know that as we've monitored other chimneys around the Portland metro area, we have seen that swifts sometimes will abandon the chimney for whatever reason. They maybe go there for a couple years in a row, and then they'll not show up there one year. So it's not unusual. Some of the cues they might be using to decide on why to go in a chimney or not, or to abandon it, could be predators. We do know that things like hawks and crows can pick off the swifts as they enter into the chimney. It's kind of one of their more vulnerable times for them. as they're trying to get in the chimney. So, but what we did do is we collect the data on the birds. We count the number of swifts, but we also look at predator activity. And we haven't seen any real correlation at Chapman over the years between predator activity and number of swifts going in there. So we're not sure if that's it, but we do know that that's been a factor at other sites.
Is it any kind of concern as far as like reduction in number of the birds? Would it be anything associated with that?
They are a declining bird species that's been documented for several decades. It's there, I think, about a 1 or 2% decline annually. It's been documented. It doesn't get them to the cusp of being listed as an endangered species, but they're definitely a species of concern. But because they're moving from one chimney to another, it's not really a strong indicator that it could be a population decline. I should also say, we also looked in the chimney. We looked inside of it after last season to see, maybe there was something in there obstructing them so that they couldn't get in there. But we looked in there. We had to shovel out a bunch of swift guano first, but we didn't see any obstructions. And also, several years ago, Portland Public Schools had a contractor refurbish the top of the chimney. And we actually worked with the contractor to make sure that the chimney would be pretty much the same, like the interior would be the same, because the birds need to grab onto the interior of the chimney bricks to roost there. And that all worked out fine. After they did the refurbish, I think that was in 2020 or 2021, for several years, the swifts just kept going in there. But then all of a sudden last year they disappeared. So it's a little bit of a mystery.
So now that they're moving out, from what I understand, into the neighborhoods, so what would you recommend for people to do to still, witness some of this and take part in taking a look at the swift as they roost?
Yeah, well, we're monitoring many chimneys throughout the Portland metro area, and we have not seen them come to Chapman yet. It's still early in the season, so that could change. But right now it's looking like they're not going to be at Chapman. And as I mentioned before, Chapman has been such a special place, partly because we've worked closely with the community there and with Portland Public Schools, and there's a big lawn there, so you can accommodate a lot of people. Unfortunately, in some of the other places that Swifts are going to or may be going to, there's not those kind of conditions often, and there may not even be communication with the landowners there. So we're encouraging people to go out in their own neighborhoods and help us spot potential swift chimneys. What we noticed last year is that after they left Chapman, they would kind of go to other chimneys in smaller numbers, but more chimneys around town. So we're encouraging people, when they find out about these chimneys, to take public transportation if they can, or walk or bike. We really want to be cognizant and careful about disturbance to not only the birds, but also to the people, the properties that these chimneys are located on. And so, being really respectful, making sure walkways and roads are clear, respecting private property. And, if you take anything with you, remove any trash, because that's something that was dealt with up at Chapman years ago, and we were able to nip that problem in the bud. So really, we're encouraging people to go out and enjoy, but be really respectful of the properties that these birds might be at.
And for somebody who maybe has a property that some swift are coming into their chimney, is there any concerns or anything that they should be aware of if that's taking place?
I think if the chimneys are active, like if there's a furnace below them, please don't turn on the furnace for a few weeks until the birds are gone. At Chapman, that's not an issue because the furnace was decommissioned years ago for the very fact that the swifts go there and they had to build a new furnace anyway. But yeah, that's a recommendation for them. And then, please reach out to the Bird Alliance of Oregon if you have any questions. We've already been in touch with several of the chimneys from last year and some of the prospective ones this year to kind of talk to them about how we can make it as easy for them to deal with any people going there potentially.
Well, I'm talking about the Bird Alliance. Is there anything that people can do to, help report anything for you all to keep track of them?
Yeah, we're continuing to keep track of them. We've been doing it for many years. We have a community science or citizen science project where we get volunteers that are trained to go out and count swifts in all the different chimneys. But we're also relying on just people out in the neighborhoods to, if they see swifts going in the chimney, and there's a lot of them, generally we're monitoring ones that have over 300 or 400 or 500 of them. please, we have on our Swift Watch webpage, which I hope you can post, we have a link to a form that people can fill out to include things like, where did you see the Swifts? What's the address? About how many Swifts, and a few other sources of information like that. It wouldn't take you more than a minute or so to fill out. So that would be great if people can go out and if they see Swifts, report it to us via that Google form.
All right. Well, Joe, anything else that you think is important for people to know?
Yeah, I just think that, I think a lot of people are surprised about the Swifts leaving Chapman, and it is a surprise in a lot of ways, but it's part of their natural behavior. They do move around, and they may come back at some point. It's been a great resource for us as a conservation organization to connect people in an urban area to a wildlife spectacle, and then connect them to some of the bigger conservation efforts we're working on, like protecting our old growth forests in Oregon. We can still do that. We're just going to have to be more creative about it, and people will need to be more creative about finding the Swifts and enjoying them as well.
All right, well, Jude, thank you so much for joining us, just to talk about this and give a little bit more education on that and let people know, how they can go out and still see some of these Swifts with also being respectful of the neighborhoods at the same time. So thanks so much for being here on Fox 12 Now.
Yeah, thanks so much.
So big thank you to Joe, as I mentioned there, and thanks to everybody who's watching right now. You can go to kptv.com and watch this segment, or, of course, our Fox 12 Oregon app or YouTube channel. Those are all great sources for these segments that we get to do on here, and everything else. So I do recommend downloading the Fox 12 Oregon app. That's a great way to not only watch this show, but all the other shows that we do have here on the station, and that includes when we have breaking news. We'll send you a notification that we have that. I'll be here anytime between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. to deliver that news to you and get you whatever that may be. But for right now, thanks for joining us. I'm going to sign off. I'll talk to you soon. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now.